Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guests are Lee and Laura Domingue. They have an organization called Trafficking Hope. They're dealing with human trafficking. New Orleans and Baton Rouge fall within the top worst cities for human trafficking. They're going to tell us how you can identify a victim and what you can do about it, and about a gala that's coming up March 15th. So join us on the next Legal Lines against human trafficking. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have back on the show Lee Domingue and now his wife Laura Domingue. We're talking about human trafficking. Guys, thank you so much for coming back in. It's nice to see you all. All right, you know, we talked about this last year, actually maybe 2 years ago. And I think one of your number one goals back then was to create awareness. And I think people are starting to get the picture that this is a serious problem. Tell the folks how y'all got involved in this. Interesting story.
You know, in 2007, we went to Greece on a trip really with another international anti-trafficking organization, really to do due diligence to see really how bad it was. I was a little skeptical, didn't think it was that bad, and said I wanted to see it. And so we helped that organization get started, and we were just appalled by really what was going on there. And
it's a global issue.
Yeah, it wrecked our world. And so when we came back to Louisiana, we had heard that it was happening in the U.S. And so we really started an awareness campaign called Trafficking Hope to really spread awareness, educate people to really what was going on, because most people were like us. They didn't realize it was happening.
I know I was.
Right. Yeah.
Much less that, you know, Baton Rouge and New Orleans are in either the top 10 or top 20 worst cities in the nation.
You know, the concentrated areas around the country, really, it's due to demand. There's a demand. And so where there's a demand, money's going to flourish, and these girls are being trafficked in from all other areas of the country, some internationally, some even from their own homes in our home state and in our city.
Tragic. Tell me about because as I understand it, the Department of Justice, the federal government did a study about it. Obviously it became an issue enough that they figured they needed to study it. Tell me what the findings were.
Yeah, what they did was they had funded a study that was done by Shared Hope International that went out into these areas to really find the concentrated areas of where human trafficking was existing, and they found, combining Baton Rouge and New Orleans, that we were a highly concentrated area for sex trafficking and labor trafficking.
And that's an important distinction you just made, at least it was for me, because I hear human trafficking and I think prostitution, sex slave, all that kind of stuff, but it is not limited to the sex. It includes labor.
It's not limited to sexual exploitation. It's also labor, forced labor. It's also now organ trafficking, where they're harvesting organs and out of it. So anything that there's a demand or a need for, they're using human beings. You know, slavery exists today in greater numbers than it existed back 150 to 200 years ago when William Wilberforce was the great person trying to stop it.
That's right. And bottom line is society and culture is again viewing human beings as nothing but a thing.
Right.
And this is a symptom of it. And of course, you know, pornography is rampant. It's everywhere. You turn on the TV, anything, billboards, and of course the internet. And I guess that's driving it. What is increasing this?
You know, some people say sex sells, and they use these images. I mean, people glorify the fact of pimps. Hollywood glorifies where sexual situations. But what's happened is in pornography, you touched on a great point. Pornography really is a feeding ground that's not only producing pedophiles, it's also getting in the hands of young men where it's getting basically imprinted in their mind.
Right.
And it's really warping them. And you know, if you really want to deal with human trafficking, with sex trafficking specifically, you know, you've got to start with men.
Laura, you mentioned, because we do talk about the pimp, because in my day that wasn't a good thing, but that's a little different now.
Right, now there's rap songs about them. There's there's books written how to pimp, and it has actually glorified to where the pimp is a lovable character, kind of eccentric, dressing really nice and over the top, and it's just kind of a joke. But it's not. It is not a joke. It is completely desensitized. But if I could touch on the one thing you said about pornography, is that all of those things you said is true. But what I think we don't realize is that young girls and boys at a young age are seeing these images, and they are normalizing it, and to where they're saying that my body is, of no value. It further puts, especially girls, as a commodity. Well, they're a commodity. There's something to be purchased. There's something to be looked at, and that is what my body is for. I'm worth that, and so it kind of puts a value on them, and they don't even realize it once they get to be, high school, 16, 17 years old. They already think, well, so what,
It's interesting. It's like our culture is, I feel sorry for young women growing up now because, if they're exposed to media and the porn in any way, they start thinking that's what they got to do to get a guy.
That's right. Facebook, Vine, all these, Instagram, all these things, all of it, think about it, all of it's driven by pictures, by Snapchat, starts off, send a cute picture of yourself, suggestive, without your clothes. It just further degrades, and they're degrading themselves.
And as I understand it, Facebook is a tool that these perverts use to try and identify girls, and of course 20%, as I understand it, of the sex slaves are guys, young men.
Right, young.
But it's a tool those guys use to try and find victims.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
They'll use all the different venues of social media, and really when you think about it, when you really dissect sex trafficking, it is the exploitation of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. They want to prey on someone who is vulnerable. They may have guys that are setting people up in malls, even in our own city, where they're going to scout out and look for that girl who is going to look for that girl who maybe is a little shy, a little insecure, and try and affirm her in some kind of capacity. I tell parents all the time, you better be knowing what your kids are doing, what they're watching, who they're associating with, because many times it's happening in our own areas, even in our own homes, and we don't realize it's going on.
Superintendent of State Police, Mike Edmondson, has frankly said exactly that. If the parents aren't telling their children how to behave and what to think and what's right and what's wrong, you can rest assured somebody else is.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, Colonel Edmondson has been a champion in our state. He, along with Governor Jindal, have really championed where our state we're very proud of the fact that we're making a dent in this, and there's a level of success that other states are seeing and adopting some of the policies and initiatives that are succeeding in the own state of Louisiana.
Let's talk about the victims, because you both have kind of talked about the telltale signs these scouts go out and look for, but be a little more specific. Who are the victims, first of all? Is it just a certain kind of person, or is it everybody?
No, I think the victims, first and foremost, are somebody's daughter, number one. Number two is it crosses over every race. It crosses over, it's in the country club all the way to the hood. It crosses over all social economic lines. We have victims that come from great family environments that a girl was subject to, where her boyfriend maybe had actually took pictures of her and is using that to manipulate her and sell her.
Holy moly.
And so it crosses all lines. We have currently, there are residents in our Hope House, and at our Hope House it ranges all different ages. The greatest age is 18 to 26. That's the greatest segment, the largest amount. And many times those just get kind of forgotten about, because you'll hear
they're adults.
Right.
And but what you don't realize is that they were actually victimized when they were 11, 12, 13, 14,
Yes.
but you see it. You see them when they're 17.
Literally slaves.
Right.
Yes.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines. Lee and Laura Domingue. We're talking about human trafficking. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and we're having, frankly, a sad show in a way, but we're bringing hope to folks. We're talking about human trafficking, and I have Lee Domingue and his wife Laura Domingue. We're talking about what are the signs of a victim of human trafficking.
You know, certain signs can be from a tattoo, a certain branding.
Really?
Traffickers or pimps actually will brand their street name on many victims. Of some of the victims or some of the residents we have at Hope House currently, we've had to work with medical people to get the tattoos removed because there's brandings around their neck.
So like a piece of meat, like a cow.
Exactly.
Like even like a
Branding iron.
A barcode.
Like a barcode.
Well, they'll put a barcode that basically infers that you're for sale and that you're
So it's an
you're my girl.
advertisement on their body,
Yes.
and it's a way of keeping tabs.
Yes, and it also, an important part though, Locke, is that it really breaks down that person that she has no value.
Right.
She is a piece of property that's owned by this individual who's manipulating and controlling it.
Guys, you know what just popped in my head, and I hope this isn't happening, but you know, you're hearing about all the ways they track animals if they get lost with the little GPS. Is that going on too?
I haven't seen anything like that in that kind of sophistication. I have seen it where they track their cell phone as far as finding a phone to know where the person is, but it's such a heavily controlled deal that their will is broken in the very beginning. They're subject to basically a breaking house where they're raped and beaten for a period of days, weeks, until this guy really just owns them. And then they basically, in many cases, have a trauma bond with this individual that they can't break. That's exactly right.
Tell the folks, Laura, you were talking about you guys encountering somebody here in Baton Rouge near Seagan.
Yes.
Yes. Here, honey, you take that one.
Yeah.
That's
At the
how it
Walmart,
started.
we were
It's sad.
picking
Makes
up
me
a check from a donor who had made a generous donation, a business, and we looked outside as we were leaving, and we saw a young girl with stilettos in her hand walking across the parking lot. This is 9:30 in the morning, and it was right here on our Seagan Lane area in I-10. And we confronted the girl to ask if she needed help, and she proceeded to tell us that she had worked on Backpage and was selling herself.
Which is a source on the internet for this.
Which is probably one of the highest concentrated areas that men go to buy sex and traffickers sell girls through this website. And this girl was coming, this is an important point, this girl was coming to pick up a Go phone. That's a disposable phone that you can throw away because the one she had was out. So she was buying another Go phone from this store so that she could use and move from hotel to hotel. So it's very hard for police to actually track them because they'll move around.
And so one of your folks went up to her?
Yes, went up to her and we said, we told her we can help you, we can get you out of this. And she at that moment said, you know what, this is my life, this is who I am, I'm sorry. And she wouldn't have anything to do with us.
And I also think that there's so much fear in that. A lot of people say,
Yeah.
well, she had the chance. She had an open wound on her face. She had just been beaten. She said, she made the thing is, well, you know, I'm right over here. We're only going to be here for one more day. I know we're getting moved to another location. And, you know, maybe I'll reach out to you. She said, but I have to go right now because I only have this many minutes till I have to be back.
And if she doesn't show up, then they're coming.
Well, they
to get
knew
her.
where she was. I mean, she was only walking distance, so they're watching for her. She said, I'm going to be in trouble. I need to go back. And it was just, you know, it was heartbreaking, really.
But the point was, this is happening in South Baton Rouge. This
Yeah.
was not happening in Las Vegas or Atlanta
Yeah.
or in some of these other highly trafficked areas. This was happening in South Baton Rouge off of I-10.
It's so sad. Let's talk about other traits of the victims. You talked about tattoos. They seem worn down. Physical abuse. Is there any emotional telltale signs that you notice?
You know, if they're coming in with new clothes, if all
I was about to say clothing.
you know, different merchandise or gifts or different things that they'll use to gain relationship and the trust of the girl in the beginning before they break them and beat them, is what will end up happening a lot of times is somebody's coming home with new jewelry, new clothes, things they can't explain.
So that's something for parents to watch.
Absolutely,
That's for parents to watch.
absolutely. And
I think there's also another great thing is that if you notice, even with the parents, if you notice that this person has come into this child, even a niece's life, and then she seems controlled by him, as in soon he seems to really want to control where she's going, what she's doing, having her answer to this. And maybe when she's around him, you can tell she's afraid to speak up for herself, or just kind of, real submissive and subdued to him. That's early signs. And then a lot of times, once they are full-blown, they're trafficking victims. When you see a trafficking victim with their trafficker, you'll see someone who will not make eye contact, who will not speak for herself. And so we've, in our training with different organizations and even women's hospital and places, when girls, ERs, when they come in, the key is to get him away from her, because she's going to answer every question like she's been trained to.
Right.
And so you got to get him separate from her, even in traffic stops, accident, get him away, and then talk to her one-on-one and say, are you free to go? Can you come and go as you please?
So you don't confront them or approach them when the pimp or the controlling personality.
You see Hollywood glamorized, like with the movie Taken, where Liam Neeson's doesn't need to be doing that. Basically, what you need to do, we've got amazing law enforcement. Like
be eyes and ears, but don't you go do it.
Right. Be eyes and ears. Go ahead and be your resource. There's apps on iPhones that is see something, send something. There are different tools that you can find. If you go to traffickinghope.org, you can get information how to call and notify the authorities. Let them intervene. They're trained. They know what they're doing, and they can go in and either make the arrest or go and investigate it.
Let's talk about the money in this. It blows my mind. Last year, I think you told me $32 billion.
Right. It's a $32 billion industry, and that's on the low end of estimates. Now, this is an interesting statistic. The UN released a statistic that said human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. It will be in 2015 surpass the drug trade as the most profitable, largest criminal enterprise in the world. So it's about the money, and it's a lot of it. Unlike selling a kilo of cocaine or a weapon, that's one item.
One time sale.
One time. A body can be sold over and over and over.
And I think you told me a pimp with 4 girls makes how much annually?
Anywhere excess of $600,000 a year, tax-free.
And making those poor babies perform that activity.
Right, anywhere of 20, 30 times in a day.
It's just a tragedy. So what are you guys doing right now? Well, how does the community come in? I know you've talked about companies, huge companies, small companies, individuals, the federal government. Tell folks what's going on.
It's really, people can give their time, their talent, their treasure, which means your time, your influence, who you are, and your resources. It takes all of it to be able to really make a difference.
This is an overwhelming task.
No
one person can do it.
No one person can do it. It takes an army, and we've amassed an army, and we've got amazing coalition partners which actually is the start of what we call our CARES initiative. The CARES initiative stands for Coalition, Awareness, Rescue, Education, and Services. What people can do is get involved in that. Get involved in the coalition. If you're a medical provider, if you're a healthcare provider, if you're a lawyer, if you are a law enforcement official, get involved in providing a holistic approach to this.
All right, we'll continue this on the last segment. We'll be right back. We're talking about human trafficking with Lee and Laura Domingue. Hi, I'm Locke Meredith, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself, Sean Fagan, Corey Ogeron, and our entire staff for being our Legal Lines audience for almost 15 years. Our audience now is over 500,000 households. I'd also like to thank Cox Channel 4 and my friend Eric Coleman for being with me from the beginning. From all of us, thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. We're talking about a very serious problem for the state of Louisiana and the city of Baton Rouge, and that's human trafficking. We're talking about it with Lee and Laura Domingue of Trafficking Hope. So we're talking about how you recognize a victim, but the next question is, what do we do? How do we get involved? And you were talking about an initiative called CARES.
Right. Our CARES initiative was launched, which CARES is an acronym for Coalition, Awareness, Rescue, Education, and Services. It takes an entire army
Right.
to make any dent in this. And so not one group can really do anything of significance. It takes the entire tribe, so to speak. And so in a coalition, that's made of law enforcement, that's made of NGOs, churches, other nonprofits that have gotten behind this.
Healthcare professionals.
Healthcare
Mental,
professionals, like our women's hospital. I mean, amazing doctors. You know, a dentist that just donated $30,000 worth of dental care for our residents. Amazing generosity. And so also the awareness piece, which is some of the billboards, the training, it's the media, it's getting out and going into different arenas to educate people of exactly what human trafficking is. And then also the rescue piece, which is helping and working with law enforcement.
Big part.
It is a huge
eyes and
part.
ears. We are the eyes and ears.
That's right.
So if you see something, say something. And
Right.
y'all have an app for that, a
Well,
phone
there's
app?
there's an app that is called See Something, Send Something.
Okay.
And they can go and get that on with their iPhone. But the E in CARES is important because that's the educational piece. That's providing training within the school systems to get to the younger kids so that you can start at an early age for them being able to identify a situation, training them, training young boys that this girl's not an object.
Right.
She's somebody's daughter. And so then moving
Reduce
to
the
that.
demand.
Right, exactly. And then the services side, which is our Hope House initiative, which is long-term and transitional care for actual victims.
All right, Laura, tell me about Hope House. I mean, as I recall, last time Lee and I were talking about it, it was under construction, close. Where do we stand?
Oh, it is. It's a 32-acre facility. First, people need to understand it's not just a home somewhere small. It is a 32-acre facility with 7 cottages, a beautiful intake facility. We have trails. We have had an amazing support from the community. Over 80,000 voluntary hours have been put out there, like 80 invested in the property. We have it is a beautiful place. Really, our dream that we had was that it would be a place where girls would go out to be restored, renewed, but it would be a beautiful place, just peaceful.
Right.
That they would maybe have not been, and that has been a great reception from our residents, that they said, this is for me. I haven't had, anything this beautiful, because
Shows them they have
colors
value.
are called, it is telling them you're worth this.
That's
We're
right.
going to invest this into you for you to get whole and to get back into society as a productive member, and you're worth that.
And so they're at the facility at Hope House.
Yes.
Is what y'all. It's not just room and board. I mean, it's all kinds of services. Tell the folks what y'all do for them.
Oh, we have a full set of curriculum for these girls.
So
that is
education?
Education, evaluating where they are. Do they need to go back and get their diploma? What do their high school diploma? Do we need to where do they need help in that? So it's evaluating each one differently. And then there's the curriculum that's just training them, teaching them even life skills. There are so many things that you may not even understand.
Yeah, right.
One of our first residents we had, it's a different mentality that she's not been given choices.
Right.
So even
That's a big
giving
point.
the basic choices, would you like to have chicken or would you like a sandwich?
And she's waiting for somebody to tell her what to do.
And
Right.
she couldn't make that decision. She said, I have a choice. And the other thing that she couldn't believe is that she could eat again. Because for them, they are deprived of food and things to keep them under control. So when they had breakfast, when she got there, she said, great, she had breakfast. And then later it was time for lunch. She actually said, I can eat again? I can eat again? And she's just used to having random meals just based upon her performance and what she did, and then they would give her something to
So they literally, when they're the slaves, they're just trying to survive.
Oh,
Right.
they are trying to
Absolutely
survive.
just trying to wake up another day.
So it goes that basic. So people say, well, what would they be doing? Well, you have to work through these issues depending on each one what they
They're a
have.
broken
So
soul and
they're
spirit.
broken. And so she eventually the next day came back, or after several days came back and actually said it was a really big breakthrough for her to say, I don't really like a turkey sandwich. I mean, she could never say anything that was against. She just accepted. So it was a great a moment for
Is
her.
health care provided there, or do y'all have just facilities that you
No,
transport
it's a great
them to?
question. You know, we provide a holistic curriculum that's on a block system. So each girl is on a path of a 4-block system to get the care they need, both from not only mentally, but the physical care as well. We have healthcare partners that actually have provided and donated their services.
Wow.
So OBGYN, this is when the community is really stepping up.
And that's what I wanted to ask is,
Yeah.
is what else,
Yeah.
what
you
can
know,
people do?
we, you know, eye doctors, dentists, OBGYNs, internal care, being able to get orthopedics if a girl's got a broken bone or some kind of dynamic that they need specific care. So we need to be able to offer every services that a female would need.
Sounds like almost anything you can
Right.
imagine they might
Right.
need. You're going
Right.
to have somebody who needs it.
Right. And then being able to provide them not only medical care, but provide, you know, there's food services dynamic. This thing is a very large project, but we're able to help girls in Louisiana and all over the United States.
And this is a national, global
Yes.
organization. It's not limited to just
That's
our
correct.
community here, much less just Louisiana. Let's shift gears real fast because y'all do an annual gala. Tell the folks about that, Laura.
Okay, great. We have our 4th annual gala here March 15th, 7 p.m. at the Louisiana State Museum. It's going to
Beautiful place, beautiful view.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing night. We are really, really excited. We have a great restaurants involved. We have Rafino's, Sullivan's, Tsunami. I mean, the best restaurants in Baton Rouge are coming, but they're not just bringing a few little things. They're bringing their best, which has been amazing. We have 12 restaurants. We have live music. We have a silent auction, live auction. We have all of these items have been donated. We have trips. We have amazing pieces of jewelry that jewelers in
Donated.
town,
Yeah,
Hannon's, Anton's.
Is there a website that
Goodness.
folks can go
Yes.
view all this
Yes,
stuff?
traffinghope.org, and you can buy tickets right now at traffinghope.org.
And how much are the tickets?
They're $100 each.
Is Trafficking Hope a 501c
Yes.
where it's a
Yeah,
tax deductible?
We are 501c3, and so it's fully tax deductible. The tickets are $100. They can buy them online. We also have a former victim, Rachel Lloyd, that's coming in from New York, who is a domestic victim and has an amazing story. You know, it's horrible, but we want to show people what hope looks like. And so this girl has gone through it, been restored, renewed, and now is making a huge difference globally with anti-human trafficking, and she's going to be our guest speaker.
Excellent. And the website again is?
Traffickinghope.org.
And the gala is when?
March 15th.
Fantastic. So go to the website and order your tickets. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lens, and our guests, we're talking about human trafficking and what you can do to stop human trafficking with Lee and Laura Domingue. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.